Hello my friends, I got some new books, so let's chat about them. So I have already mentioned to you guys a few times now that I am in my final semester of college. It has been incredibly stressful, so I decided to treat myself to a little bit of retail therapy. So we're going to talk about some of these books that I got recently, and I'm going to start us off by talking about today's sponsor, Book of the Month. So Book of the Month is an online subscription service for readers. How it works is that each month their team vets hundreds of books, provides you with a carefully curated selection of new and early release titles so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. I absolutely love the curated aspect of the service because I love being able to discover new titles that I've never heard of, new authors, and explore new genres. Book of the Month also has some new features, so if you're not necessarily a physical book kind of person, you can get audiobooks with them now. But they have an app, and so on the app you can download your audiobook, and you can also like update your reading progress. There's like fun reading challenges in there and everything. So I love that they're adding that like in-app experience. Book of the Month is a really great way to get hardcover fiction for an amazing price. You will not see their prices beat anywhere else really, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. And you can get your first box for $5 this month if you use the code SWEATER in the link that's in my description below. And let me show you the two books that I ended up getting. I got Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang. So this is a short story collection, and I have been really enjoying short story collections recently. I haven't like talked about it much on my channel because I haven't been doing a lot of like reading updates recently, but I've really been enjoying short story collections, and so this is going to be a great one to add to my collection. So then I also got this book. Is called Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. This was my add-on option for this month, and this is by Lex Croucher. This is a YA historical romance, and it's queer, and it is not exactly a King Arthur retelling, but it is about King Arthur's descendant, and Art is about to get married to this princess named Gwendolyn, but Art and Gwendolyn pretty much find out that they're both gay, and Art has like a boyfriend and Gwen has like this childhood love of hers, and so they decide that they're going to like make this pact and kind of cover for each other while they're falling in love with two different people. And it just sounds like it's going to be really interesting, and I do love a historical romance, so I am excited to check this out. I think it'll be really sweet, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. And like I said, you can check them out for $5 this month with the code SWEATER. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video, and let me tell you about some of these other books that I ended up getting. So the first book that we have is A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Milford, and this is a queer fantasy romance, and it follows these two twins, Kala and Briar. And yeah, so it's about Kala trying to save their sister from this like sleeping curse that this evil sorceress like places on them. And I also know that the magic, like the world, has something to do with wolves and like packs and things like that. I love that kind of thing. That's definitely 100% up my alley, so I'm really excited to check this out. It seems to be like a Sleeping Beauty retelling to some extent, and so I'm interested to see how that story is going to be kind of retold or reimagined in this. But more than anything, I'm just excited to see a fantasy book that features a queer non-binary protagonist, so I'm really excited to read this one. I think it'll be really good. All right, so then we're getting into this big box. So I did some damage, and then my grandmother, who I love very dearly, she enabled me to do even more damage because she decided to buy me some books as well. My grandma, she is like the #1 fan of the channel, so she will always make sure that I'm getting a steady supply of books because she watches my channel probably more than anyone. So I love you, Grandma. So let me show you what's in this box if I can finally get it open. I'm like struggling. That's why God invented scissors. So I have a really big like romance haul in here, which I'm excited about. I don't tend to buy like physical copies of romance books that frequently. All right, so the first book that I have here is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley, and this is a fake dating romance, and it is about a girl who ends up like fake dating this football player. I think he's a retired football player, and he's trying to start like this cupcake business, like a cupcake store. Like this reporter ends up coming to the cupcake store. They mistakenly believe that the girl and the guy are an item, and so they decide to fake date to get some good press going for the cupcake store, but also for the girl because she was on like a reality show, and on the reality show she was kind of like the villain. So it just sounds like it's gonna be cute, and I've had my eye on this one for a really long time, so it was time that I finally picked up a copy. Alright, so then I got a historical romance. It's called A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. This is a historical romance about a trans woman, and pretty much she was in the war, pretty much fakes her death so that she can come back and like live her life the way she wants, in a way that affirms her gender and everything like that. But in faking her death, she had to let her best friend believe that she's been dead for like several years now, and so this is about her and that friend like reconnecting after she's transitioned and everything like that, and it's like a love story between them. It sounds like it's going to be so angsty and dramatic, and I just love everything about it. Like, how do you come back from faking your death to your best friend who you're in love with and who's in love with you? Like, I have to know how the story is going to unfold, so I'm really excited to read this one. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about it, but it is a really chunky romance. I believe it's almost like 500 pages, which is kind of a lot for a romance, but I'm excited to dive into this. Okay, so then I have this book, Behind the Scenes by Karelia Steets Waters. This was one of my most anticipated releases for 2023 because I read another book by this author in the past, and it was a sapphic romance. It's actually right up here. I read this book. It's called Satisfaction Guaranteed. This is also a sapphic romance, and I really enjoyed this book. I think I read this in 2021 or maybe 2020, and I really enjoyed it. So I was hyped for this next release from this author. This one, Behind the Scenes, is about a filmmaker who is trying to get her latest project financed, and so she ends up enlisting the help of this other woman named Rose, who's like a business consultant. And so this is a romance between them, like trying to figure out how to get this film up off the ground and financed. So I think it'll be fun. I like when stories are set to the backdrop of like filmmaking and Hollywood and like trying to make a movie and all that kind of stuff. I love things that are about artists and like creative people as well, so I think it'll be really interesting. I'm hoping I'm gonna love this one. Okay, so then I got Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I read this book earlier this year. It's one of my favorite books of all time, but mostly of 2023. I just really enjoyed this romance. I think it's one of the sweetest books I've read maybe ever, and I wanted to pick up a physical copy because of course I love it and I love it dearly, but also I wanted my little sister to read it because my little sister is deeply embedded in her bookworm era, but she's 14 now, and so I want to have like some age appropriate books that she can read, because y'all know that I read a lot of 18 plus clownery and buffoonery. So I wanted to have a book that I could recommend her and like let her borrow that is, you know, age appropriate and really cute. So I got this one for her. So shh, nobody tell her, but I'm gonna give it to her soon. But I'm excited for her to read it. I hope she's really gonna love it. She loves romance. The last book that I gave her to borrow that she really enjoyed was Love from A to Z. She really enjoyed that book, and I feel like if she really enjoyed Love from A to Z, she could really enjoy this one. So we'll see how it goes. Alright, so this next one is for me. I got Bet on It by Jody Slaughter. I have read two things by Jody Slaughter in the past, actually. Both of them were novellas. One of them was like a Valentine's Day novella, and the other one was actually like a quarantine romance. And it was really interesting. You know, it was about like the first few days of the coronavirus, and like these two people, they're family friends, and they end up having to like quarantine together and being in each other's quarantine bubble and falling in love. And I found that to be like really interesting. I was definitely intrigued to read more from Jody Slaughter, but I just never got around to it. Finally, in 2023, I'm picking up another book by her. Honestly, the concept for this one is a little bit silly, even sillier than my typical fare. This one is about this girl named Aja, and Aja, she goes to like a weekly bingo night, and one day her bingo partner introduces her to her grandson, and the grandson is like, I don't know, I guess some hot guy, and there's a lot of chemistry and a lot of sparks between him and Aja, and so they decide to do like a bingo based sex pack. I don't understand how we got there. I don't understand how that works, but I'm intrigued. It sounds a little bit weird, a little bit silly, but I'm excited to check it out. So I got this one. And then here is another book that I've already read, Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. I really enjoyed this college romance. It was just so sweet. It was so good. It was definitely a romance that I could see myself rereading, which is really saying something, because as much as I love romance, I feel like most romances don't lend themselves to a rereading experience. But as soon as I finished reading this book, I felt the urge to go back to the beginning and to experience the story all over again, and I feel like my experience would be enriched by rereading the book as well. So I definitely had to pick up a copy. I'm excited to check it out, and this was just such a sweet, good, like well-developed romance. So I'm excited to have a copy, and I'm excited to have this edition specifically because I love the paperback edition, which has these two on the cover rather than the hardcover version, which just has like the girl on the cover. Like, that one is cute, but this one's better in my opinion, and I love the color scheme. So then, y'all know I've also been reading some books by Katherine Addison this year. I read The Goblin Emperor, one of my favorite reads of the year, and I also read Witness for the Dead recently. And Witness for the Dead and this book, The Grief Stones, are connected to The Goblin Emperor, but they're not exactly like sequels to one another. So Witness for the Dead and Grief Stones are a part of the Amalo Cemetery series, and it follows this guy who is a witness for the dead, which means he can kind of communicate with the dead, and that helps him to investigate like murders and solve crimes and things like that. And so this is about this character. His name is Thara, and I enjoyed him in Witness for the Dead. I didn't love Witness for the Dead as much as I enjoyed The Goblin Emperor, but I definitely interested enough to read the next book in the Amalo Cemetery series, or Cemeteries of Amalo series rather. So I am excited to check this one out. Hopefully I will enjoy it a little bit more than I enjoyed Witness for the Dead, but I'm still excited to give it a shot because I really enjoy this author's writing style above all else, and so it's still worth reading for me. So I want to see like how the series is going to turn out. And also Thara has this love interest that's introduced in the Witness for the Dead, and so I'm excited to see how things are developing between those two. Alrighty, so now we've got this final box of books, but sisters, we really need to do some reflection because I told myself like 2023 is going to be the year that I read everything that's on my physical TBR. I'm not gonna buy any books. I'm gonna, like, I have all these grand ambitions and plans, and why do I feel like in 2023 I've purchased more books than any other year in the existence of my channel? Like, what is going on? What is the situation, and how did we get here? We really have to investigate this because I just don't understand how it's possible that I started the year, like, I distinctly remember, and I filmed like a reading goals video where I was like, I'm gonna focus on my physical TBR, I don't want to buy that many books. Here I am, like 15 hauls in a single year. Like, what? Capitalism is kicking my ass. It's crazy. It's really crazy when you think about it. But anyway, let's talk about these books again. Okay, so this book is about a character named Vivian who's a lawyer at like a psychiatric hospital, I think, and she advocates for like mentally ill patients, but she's dealing with some trauma of her own, and so she deals with like extreme hypervigilance. And I had borrowed this from my library a few months ago. I didn't end up finishing it, but because my library sucks, like they only really let you have a book out for like 2 weeks, I guess, which is not always enough time. And so my time ran out, and then the wait list was like super long, so I couldn't get back to it. But I was really enjoying it. Like, Vivian's inner monologue, she's a really complex character, and like I said, she's really hyper vigilant, and so being in her mind was really fascinating, and I was enjoying like the experience. So I decided to pick up a physical copy. And so yeah, like, it just seems to be about Vivian and her trauma, and she ends up going to like a family reunion, and I believe that sparks some like uncovering some memories for her and things like that. So I'm interested to see where this story is gonna go, and I was enjoying it so far, so we'll see how I feel when I finish it. Alright, so the next book that I ended up picking up was Hench by Natalie Zena Walscott, maybe that's how you pronounce the last name, I'm not sure. But this is a story about a woman named Anna, and Anna works for a supervillain in like a corporate office doing, I don't know, like HR or something for the hench people that the criminal employs, and she ends up being like severely injured by a superhero, and that causes her to kind of become a villain herself, and this is like her villain origin story. And it just really reminds me in premise of The Boys. So I only watched the first season of The Boys, and I kind of liked it, but I thought it was a really interesting idea, and I do tend to like really like pessimistic, nihilistic kind of storytelling. So I'm interested to see like how this story is going to play out for Miss Anna, who got severely injured, and it like impacts her mobility and things like that. So I'm interested to see how this story plays out, and I've heard nothing but good things about this book for literal years, so it's time for me to finally read it. Another book that I've heard nothing but good things about is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. Now, I will say that I really don't know what this book is about. I believe it's like sci-fi, but I don't know anything about the premise, and I just picked it up just off the strength of like the passion that everybody has about this book. Every person that I've ever seen read and review this book like loves it, and so I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pick it up. Like, I'm just gonna buy it sight unseen. I don't know anything about it, but I'm gonna get it. Let's read this synopsis together really quick. Okay, so it says, Nia Amani is a woman out of place and outside of time. Decades of travel through the stars are condensed into mere months for her. Oh, the years continue to march steadily onward for everyone she has ever known. Her friends and lovers have aged past her. All she has left is work. Alone and adrift, she lives only for the next paycheck until the day she meets a mysterious boy fallen from the sky. A boy broken by his past. It does sound interesting. I want to know why she's not aging but everyone else is. So it's a good synopsis. I already have a question that I want answered, and I'm really excited to pick this book up and figure out what's going on in it. So yeah, like I said, I've heard good things, and I prefer to not know what's going on in a story than to know too much before I go in. All right, so then we have this giant monster of a book, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This, I believe, is the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, and I just had to pick it up because it was like for a really good price. It was like $5.99, so I had to pick it up, even though I have yet to read Priory of the Orange Tree. It's actually over here somewhere on my shelf, but I have not read it yet. But again, another book that I've heard really amazing things about, and I know that there's like lesbians in it and dragons and stuff, so like it sounds like it should be right up my alley, so I had to pick this one up. And the cover is just so beautifully illustrated. Like, it's actually insane, the level of detail, and I love how the image is like a little bit raised so you can feel like the texture of some of these parts of the art. It's cool. I like the cover a lot. All right, so then I got this book. This is another literary fiction, and it's pretty short, and it's called If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English. And so this is about two people in Cairo, and it's about like two unnamed protagonists. I always think it's interesting to read stories where the protagonists are unnamed. And anyway, it's about these two unnamed protagonists like falling in love, and I've heard that the writing in this is just really, really beautiful. So I have been intrigued by this book for, I want to say like a year or two maybe, because I remember I did a live show once and someone was telling me that this was the book they were currently reading, and I've always been kind of fascinated by the book ever since that comment. So I'm glad I finally picked it up, and I will be reading it at some point. Okay, so then I have Dead Country by Max Gladstone. Max Gladstone is an author who I've read many, many books by in the past. I really enjoy his work. One of his most famous ones is co-authored with Amal Al-Mukhtar, and that book is This Is How You Lose the Time War. Y'all know I love that book. If you don't know that I love that book, where have you been? What have you been doing? That book's amazing. And so yeah, but I've read a bunch of other books by Max Gladstone, and one of the books that I read by him was called 3 Parts Dead, and it is about this girl named Tara Abernathy. And Tara is like a magic user from a small town, and she gets recruited from her small town to become like a big time lawyer or like prosecutor. And in this world, like, people who do this kind of job that she gets recruited for, they pretty much like solve magical crimes, and in it she is uncovering like this mystery revolving around a god that gets murdered, and it's like a really fascinating book, right? And Tara is the main character in that. And the series, the craft sequence, it follows a bunch of different characters, but this series is pretty much set in the same world, but it's about Tara, and it's kind of a reintroduction to Tara. And so this is about her going back to her hometown to like bury her father, and I think it'll be like a really good way to reconnect with Tara as a character, because I really liked her in 3 Parts Dead. So I'm excited to read this, and this is a part of like another larger series. I think it's going to be called The Craft Wars, so I'm excited to read it. Okay, and the last book that I got, I'm like really excited about this actually. So this one is Raven Unveiled by Grace Draven, and this is the 3rd book in the Fallen Empire series. So this is like a fantasy romance series that I really enjoy, okay? I really enjoy, but the reason I'm so excited about this is because this is an autographed copy. I did not know that when I bought the book, so I was so hyped when I opened up the box. But yeah, I love her books a whole lot, and so I'm excited to have this book. book, and I'm excited to have it signed, which I wasn't expecting. So yeah, but I'm excited to read all of these books, and I'm excited to finally finish school so that I can have some time and some mental space and energy for reading, because 2023 has not been like my most prolific reading year, I would say. So yeah, I'm excited for 2024. Hopefully it's going to be a year full of lots of reading and lots of fun. Here is the stack. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video, hopefully. Bye, you guys. Mwah.